Depending on your outlook on life, this company is either a creative powerhouse which you love, or a power-hungry monopoly that needs to be stopped before it consumes everything, including your soul, and sends you to hell for torture and punishment. Ladies and gentlemen, the Walt Disney Company. In the last 10 years, they have been on a major expansion, buying some of the most popular entertainment franchises, from the Muppets, Marvel, and recently Star Wars. Like them or hate them, the Disney Company has one hell of a monopoly on Western entertainment. But one media which they've never fully cracked is video games. Well, yes, there have been Disney-themed games, and games which use Disney IPs, but Disney as an actual in-house video game developer isn't really a thing at the moment. But that said, they have had a close relationship with different gaming companies over the last 30 years, and since the early 90s, Sega have partnered closely with Disney to create some incredible attractions and pieces of entertainment. One particular collaboration between the two companies that has almost been lost to time is arguably the most visually impressive. Did you know that Disney used to have its own Sega World park, and that traces of it still exist in the Disney theme parks to this very day? If you know where to look, that is. So let's start right at the beginning with how Sega first partnered with Disney, and we head over to Universal Studios. Yeah, we have to start this story by talking about one of Disney's biggest rivals. I've covered Sega and Universal's partnership before on this channel, when Sega held the Star Kids Challenge, in which they took over both Universal Studios Orlando and Hollywood for a TV special. Well, it turns out that after this show, talks were actually held with Universal to open a Sega-themed attraction in their parks. Unfortunately, no visual designs of the park have surfaced, but the size of the attraction was due to be between 30 and 50,000 square feet, at a cost of $20 million, which in today's money is around $35.6 million. But following talks with Disney, these plans fell through, and instead Sega opted to partner with Disney, who were offering a better deal. It seems that a key reason for Sega partnering with the House of the Mouse is that in 1994, Disney were planning to open a new technology museum named Innoventions in their Epcot theme park, and wanted to showcase high-tech entertainment technology. With video games seen as cutting-edge home entertainment at the time, and millions of visitors to the parks each year, Sega wanted to be the face of entertainment in the Innoventions Museum. With both Sega and Disney agreeing to the partnership, construction began on the Innoventions building, and plans were quickly drawn up for the Sega section of the museum, which ended up being a mini Sega World in itself. Sega's Tom Kalinske and Peter Johnson were both interviewed for a behind-the-scenes feature about the attraction, and they described the area as follows.
Visitors at the Innoventions Sega display are really going to see the future from Sega.
The Sega exhibit at Innoventions will be overwhelming. I think that people will really be amazed at how much there is to see from Sega. We're spending a lot of money on lighting and special effects to really create the game experience.
Innoventions is a wonderful opportunity to step into the future.
In the same behind-the-scenes clip, both Peter Johnson and Tom Kalinske talk about how the Sega attraction will appeal to both people who play games daily and people who do not play games very much, if indeed at all. The area would be open and include a wide variety of different games to cater to different tastes and skill, such as classic Sega arcade cabinets and the latest Sega consoles. Even the Sega Pico would end up making an appearance. There were also plans to make a preschool area within the attraction, with specially made smaller scale controllers and games that appealed directly to the preschool age group. Whilst I can't say for certain if this actually appeared in the park, judging by how low the monitors are in this section of footage, it appears that this was realised in some small way. The clip also shows concept art for the venue. As the camera pans over it, we can see the Sega World was to be split into different themed areas. You can just make out an ancient Egyptian sarcophagus, as well as the Aladdin game being placed in what looks like a castle. There were even plans for a Marvel themed zone, which would be focused around the X-Men. Make your own joke about Disney eventually owning Marvel in the comments section. The park would also feature the Future Zone, which would showcase the latest consoles, and even games which were still early in development. But let's take a look at another part of the attraction's planning, An initial model of the Sega section of Innoventions was created. Only one photo of the model exists, but it gives us a really good insight into what was originally planned, and even the basis of a comparison between the model and the final product. So let's take a closer look, because the model is full of hidden references to Sega and their games at the time. On the right side of the model, you can make out a small banner for Toe Jam and Earl, Panic on Funkatron, and there's also some smaller images of Sonic next to this sign, and we'll take a look at exactly what these are later, because it's something pretty cool that's a bit hard to illustrate right now. A few other images from other games are also on the model, including Bubsy. Yeah, it's not easy to make out, but it's definitely him. I just wish I could find the actual artwork that this one is based on. On the left side of the model, you can make out a sign for Aladdin on the Mega Drive. It makes sense to include some Disney games in the museum, and to be fair, Aladdin on the Mega Drive is actually a really great title. And you can also make out another sign, which is the "Welcome to the next level!" This was a slogan which Sega used to promote a lot of their early 90s systems. It's hidden just behind a Green Hill Zone inspired palm tree. And there's also a small sign featuring Echo the Dolphin, which is close to the entrance of the museum. But the most epic part of this display is the central entrance area. Plans to welcome the visitors to the museum included a huge Sonic statue standing upon a bouncy barrel surrounded by golden rings, and they even had Sega consoles built into them. The Sonic used in the model is based on the Sonic 1 statue, which was used regularly during the early 90s, and one still resides at Sega of America to this day. Another really nice detail, and this was included to help keep the immersion that you are actually in a futuristic theme park, are the inclusion of the giant clouds. How does this help with immersion? Well, basically, it prevents guests from looking up and seeing a lot of the safety and electrical equipment. It just helps maintain that illusion that you are in a fantasy world. So now you know how they planned the museum to look. How did it actually look in real life? Well, in 1994, the museum opened to the public, and we got to see it for ourselves. Well, you can't deny that the transition from plan to execution was incredibly impressive. It's almost an exact full-sized recreation of the model. There are, however, some differences and additions which we'll go over now. So one difference, which is actually quite amazing the more you think of it, is that there's a huge sign for Tasmania, which was it was an okay Sega game at the time, but Taz was actually a Warner Brothers property, not Disney. It's quite amazing to think that Disney agreed to put a sign up for a competitor's mascot. At the top left of the image, you can just make out Echo the Dolphin, and the clouds have also been realised as fully 3D models which suspend in the air. And you can also make out a Sonic logo behind the, well, let's talk about the main star of this photo. The Sonic statue is absolutely outstanding. It was completely redesigned from the plans, but for the better. The statue depicts Sonic holding a giant golden ring, and he's even standing on the bouncy barrel, which has actually been decorated to be more accurate to the video game. And for the longest time, it was believed that the barrel didn't move. In every piece of footage and even physical account that exists of the statue, everyone reports that the barrel didn't move. Until I was able to find this piece of footage. It's only very brief and doesn't clearly show the Sonic statue itself, but the barrel does in fact rotate. It's crazy to think that for over 2 decades, fans believed that this statue had no movement, but it appeared that for at least the first year, the barrel did indeed rotate similar to its actual game counterparts. So other than the central entry area, what else was on offer at the venue, and just how large was it? What little footage exists gives us a really clear indication there were huge cutouts of Sonic, Tails and Robotnik throughout the museum, and we also get a glimpse of the 3D clouds that were also in the model. Statues of Sonic, Tails and Knuckles were also scattered around. It seems that these statues were moved to different locations throughout the museum during its lifetime. In the footage, you can make out a Tails statue standing on a plinth, but in this photo, we see Sonic, Tails and Knuckles standing together. Another really cool part of this museum was the Sonic and Knuckles meet and greet. At different times during the day, Guests could pose here with a Sonic mascot for photographs and even get an autograph if they wanted to, but other times, guests could just pose for photos themselves. And remember those Sonic shapes from the model? Well, the video footage reveals that they were in fact electronic light displays. These look really cool considering the museum was quite a darkened environment. And of course, there were tons of games on offer. Sega even showed off their arcade dominance by linking together 7 Virtua Formula arcade cabinets, Disney being only one of a handful of places in the world where you could get to experience a multiplayer setup like this. There were even prototype games available to play. Some of these titles didn't even get a release outside of Japan. It was that cutting edge and kept so up to date by Sega and Disney. Sega even made a small display case and filled it with various Sonic-themed products that you could buy at the time, though it's not clear if you could actually get these from Epcot itself or if they were there purely for demonstration and display. And the staff who actually worked in the museum were also given uniforms to help with the immersion. The uniform was a white lab coat which had Sonic on the back, and fellow merch collector Justin of Treasure Hunting Sonic is actually lucky enough to have one of these lab coats. They're extremely rare now, and the reason being is Disney have this policy where they won't pay a staff member their final paycheck unless they return all their uniform, even if they have no intention of ever using that uniform again. Bloody hell, Disney! During the initial park's lifetime, Sega kept updating and subtly making changes to the park in order to provide guests with a truly cutting-edge experience. In the first 2 years of the park's operation, a really unexpected display was on show to guests who visited the park. It was of the cancelled Unknown Sonic cartoon, the one which predated Saturday Morning Sonic. This display didn't last too long, but it was still quite amazing to see these designs in public like this, especially since Saturday Morning Sonic was already on the air prior to the park's opening. In 1995, guests who stayed at a Disney Resort hotel could watch a 20-minute video which showed attractions and entertainment around the Walt Disney World Resort. In the video, it features a really interesting discovery. It appears to be a completely different design layout for the Sega World attraction, but the Sonic statue looks slightly different, and the ring it's holding is at a completely different angle. But unlike the actual attraction in the Epcot Center, this one is surrounded by game pods, and if you look carefully, you can make out that it's clearly in a TV studio. Very strange, but nevertheless a fun discovery. By 1997, the park was updated again, this time to include a large Nights into Dreams display, and more interestingly, this previously unknown discovery. So do you recognise that artwork? That's right, it's from Sonic Xtreme. It seems that Sonic Xtreme was actually at Disney's Epcot resort in some way. The render that's briefly shown in the clip is the same one which appeared on the box art that was used to promote the game. Only this render appears to be much higher quality. It even has extra shading and lighting details which we've yet to see in any other artwork. Is this a newly discovered Sonic Xtreme render? Please let me know in the comments if it is. Unfortunately, there's no footage or even actual accounts from people that went there of the game being at Disney's Epcot Resort, but given how we do have footage of prototype games and even demos at the park, and Sonic Xtreme did actually have a public demo that was available at various conventions around this time, this image of the Sonic Xtreme render is a very strong indication that the game was not only at Disney's Epcot, but also playable to the public. This would be an absolutely amazing discovery if anyone has footage or even just photos of it being available at the park. If anyone can say for certain or even has video of the game at Sega World Disney, please let me know as I would love to see it. By 1999, the contract between Disney and Sega was up for renewal, but it became apparent that the venue had to undergo radical change if an extension was to be agreed. Despite the popularity with guests, the entire Innoventions Innoventions area was subject to a number of complaints and criticisms. The biggest issue was that due to the layout of the building, guests found it confusing to navigate. The second problem was the exhibits themselves. The exhibits in the Sega World portion of the building were looking especially dated. The most common console to be found in the area was the Mega Drive, or Sega Genesis. But Sega were about to release the Dreamcast later that year. Sega were keen to continue having a presence at Innoventions, so it was therefore agreed that they would operate a much smaller attraction. The new attraction would be called The Video Games of Tomorrow, presented by Sega. And this is where things become a little odd, because despite the revamp running for over 2 years, there's virtually no footage or photographs from the Disney venue. But we know exactly what it looked like, because Sega basically replaced the old museum with their 1999 E3 booth. Based on reports from those who actually visited the revamped attraction, the Sega area was more or less their booth from E3 in 1999. It even had the giant Sonic Adventure statue, which looked like it was bursting out of the wall. The media you're looking at now is actually from E3 of that year, because since 1999, there's been a shocking lack of photos and video from the actual Disney location. Until I was able to find some. So the video that you're looking at now is a bit of a walkthrough of the newly revamped Innoventions building, and you can really see how small the Sega area is, especially when you compare it to the previous version. But the footage does show that they had a Shenmue and Sonic Adventure area, and one thing you'll notice about the footage is that every gaming pod is for the Dreamcast. There were no other consoles in the park. Even the Sega arcade cabinets were removed. It was purely a Dreamcast themed area. But unlike the previous museum, this one actually had physical merchandise that visitors could buy. A special Disney-themed pin was made which commemorated the revamped museum, and there were also arcade-style tokens which, I'm not sure if you could take these home, but a lot of guests just decided, meh, I'm gonna take them home. Sadly, the museum would close down around 2001. It was assumed that most of the items in the museum were just destroyed or thrown out. But you see, the thing with this channel is we often find things which are presumed lost or destroyed, and as it happens, not everything was thrown out. There are still some traces of Sega World Disney at Epcot to this day, and thanks to Treasure Hunting Sonic, we have a number of photos of items which survived. These are located in areas where the public are not normally supposed to go, such as this stunning mural depicting very early concept art of the Innoventions area. The painting is located in the backstage area of Epcot and features the Sega World attraction. I love how the initial concept design for this area was just a giant Sonic statue suspended in the air. Unfortunately, it's rare for normal visitors to actually get to see this unless they get taken backstage and happen to spot it. Another cool find, which would be virtually impossible for a regular park visitor at Epcot to see, is actually located in the staff maintenance tunnels underground. There's a small mural of Sonic painted onto one of the staff access tunnels. These tunnels are normally completely off limits to park guests, and only authorized Disney cast members are usually allowed into these parts of the park. And the final reference is the Sega Sports sign. It was saved when the park closed down, and it's currently located in just a random storage room. In fact, if you take a look at some of the earlier parts of this video, you can actually see the same sign hung up in the attraction. So it shows that not everything was destroyed, and that some Disney cast members are still keeping the memories of Sega World Disney alive in some way. Sadly, Epcot is currently undergoing a major refurbishment, and the old Innoventions building was completely destroyed at the end of 2019, meaning any traces of the old museum in the building itself have just been lost forever. But there is one other Sega and Sonic reference in Epcot which has been in the public view for years. Whilst not directly linked to the old Sega attraction, it's one of the best worst kept secrets for anyone who collects Sega and Sonic related merchandise that visits the park. In the Japanese pavilion, there's an extremely large department store which for the last 10 years has had an incredible Sonic selection of items, and as of 2 weeks ago, it was full of classic Tomy Supersonic plushies. So that's pretty much everything regarding Sega World at Disney. I hope you've enjoyed this look at one of the lesser known histories of Sega, and of Disney for that matter. And one day, I hope we get more video of the Sega attraction, because it looked incredibly cool, and without a doubt was key in the creation of Sega World London and Sega World Sydney just a few years later. I hope that in some way, this video will prompt those who did take photos and even video of the area to post it, because it would be great to see additional material from the forgotten Sega World to be posted online so everyone can enjoy it. What about you guys? Were any of you lucky enough to actually visit Sega World Disney when it was open? And let me know if that Sonic Xtreme render is a new discovery. Please let me know in the comments, especially if Sonic Xtreme was actually playable at Epcot. And also, let me know your favourite part of the attraction. I'd love to know. See you next time. Hey guys, just wanted to take this time to thank you all for checking out the video. Don't forget to smash that like button and click the subscribe and bell notification button to keep updated with future videos. Just wanted to take a second to give special thanks to my kind donators who help support the work I do and keep the channel going. And those kind people are GKid64, Graham Hall, Kenny Newbury, Mark Davies, Maven Stevenson, Mr. Retro Geek, Niemand, Rusty Coolpix, Stalin Usher 2, Stephen Temple, The Wax, and Tyrebut Renux. If you'd like to join them and get early access to my videos, as well as getting your name yelled out in my sexy northern accent, please use the link to my Patreon in the video description. But if you'd like to support the channel and video in a non-financial way, please share the video and my channel on any appropriate Facebook and Reddit groups, as well as sharing the video on Twitter and Discord, which is also a huge help. But most of all, just thank you for the incredible support and taking the time out to watch and enjoy this video, as well as the other work that I do. It really does mean the world to me. Thank you.